North America is home of the world's second and fourth largest countries in the world, Canada and the United States of America. They're both pretty close physically, sort of culturally, and not so much historically. They had rough relations for the first little while, and a good example of this was the Oregon boundary dispute. You see, in the late 1700s, Canada, which at the time was actually Britain, and the United States needed to set their boundaries. In 1783, Britain and the US established their border from the St. Croix River to separate Maine and New Brunswick. They drew a couple lines going from there to here, then connected back to the St. Lawrence, through the Great Lakes, and finally at the Lake of the Woods. During this time, the map was actually wrong, and it turned out that the lake was not actually round, and the Mississippi was a lot lower than they originally thought. This would later get fixed in 1818, and keeping the previous border, the line would go straight across the 49th parallel until it hit the Rocky Mountains. Going west of the Rockies, both countries argued which one should own this territory. But that's not what today's video is about. If you really want that, check out The Pig War by Oversimplified. It's actually what inspired this video. Anyway, the dispute was figured out in 1846 with the border being a simple straight line. However, you see this, right here? Well, those are the San Juan Islands, and the British and Americans wanted to figure out who owned them. And it didn't help that some gold was found up north, because a lot of Americans started flocking to the region. And this is finally where we depart from the Pig War. In the 1850s, some indigenous tribes claimed to have found some gold along the Thompson and Fraser rivers. Initially, a man named James Douglas, the governor of the Hudson's Bay Company, wanted the news of the gold strikes to be secret. Although in early 1858, 800 ounces or 50 pounds of gold was shipped down to San Francisco and California to determine its quality. And it was only then when the news of some fresh Canadian gold was up for grabs, and the Americans wanted it. In the spring, a couple hundred Californians went up to Fort Victoria, past Fort Langley, and went upstream and became the first wave of people to look for gold. It was the summer of 1858, and many American miners started to go up to the Fraser River looking for gold around the Yale and Linton area. Although many of them didn't find gold, they did find some indigenous women, and did some horrible things upon the women of those tribes that I will not elaborate on. And in response, the indigenous people killed them, which is, only natural. And that ended up triggering the Fraser Canyon War. Well, okay, it wasn't a war in the traditional sense, it was really just a violent incident. The war lasted from early July 1858 until late August 1858. It ended when the captain of a company based in Yale named Henry Snyder called a truce with the local indigenous chief. He told them to give the miners access to the gold fields or else they would bring in some American militiamen. They chose the former. Now I know what you might be thinking. Well, you're talking about the gold rush, but how much people actually got gold? And then I say, well, shut your mouth. I'm about to get there. The number of people who actually went up was around 30,000 people. But by the fall, a lot of the men had failed to get some gold and claimed that the whole thing was some baloney. And when the gold was depleted by the early 1860s, many of them went home or had scattered across the lower mainland and Whatcom County regions. Also, it should be mentioned that after the gold rush, that the economy in the area sank because of the gold depletion and the population decline. And this is pretty much where the gold rush ends. It's not something you'll really hear in Canadian history at all, mainly because it didn't have a major impact on anything. Or did it? Remember when I said that James Douglas was the governor of the Hudson's Bay Company? Well, he was, but during the gold rush, the region he was in wasn't actually a fully formed British colony yet. It was only a response to the influx of American settlers and the various disagreements that the newly formed British Columbia colony was formed in 1866, and James Douglas would go on to be the first governor of it. Oh yeah, and 1 year later, this little country named Canada was formed, and BC would join it in 1871 as the 6th province. And that is the Fraser Canyon Gold Rush along with the formation of British Columbia. Thank you for watching this video, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I'll see you in 2025.